What led to that meltdown and how you felt in that exact moment?
I felt like a failure. We were losing money left and right. And what could go wrong in that business was going wrong.
If you've ever doubted your own self-worth, questioned your ability to succeed, or ever wondered what it takes to climb back from the brink, this conversation is going to light a spark inside of you. And we're getting ready to jump right in with Alec.
That week, I got big news in all three companies that we weren't going to make it. We weren't going to succeed. When I looked deep down, the reason that I went into this was I was trying to please them. And it took me several months later to realize that they were acting almost like a godlike figure in my life.
Have you ever felt like you weren't good enough to do things by yourself? Or like no matter how hard you tried, something deep inside of you just told you that you couldn't do it alone? Well, today's guest, Alec Broadfoot, has been there. As a young entrepreneur, he chased success with a string of different ventures until the weight of failing businesses brought him to his knees, literally in his kitchen, mopping the floor, in tears, realizing that everything might just fall apart. But that breakdown was also a breakthrough. And that fueled a journey that you're going to hear about in this episode of self-discovery, an unwavering belief that no dream is too big and that you can come back and you can do it with your own vision. You don't need necessarily a business partner. And you're going to hear about that story today. And he's the founder of Vision Spark, which is a company that's dedicated to helping entrepreneurs hire the right people, specifically leadership team members. And so you're going to hear his personal story, some lessons that you can learn from. And if you've ever doubted your own self-worth, questioned your ability to succeed, or ever wondered what it takes to climb back from the brink, this conversation is going to light a spark inside of you. And we're getting ready to jump right in with Alec. Alec, good to see you. Thanks for driving over from Columbus to Pittsburgh to be here today.
Great to be here.
Yeah. I want to get right into it. And I know that we've had a bunch of calls and we've had a bunch of talks before we did the podcast. So I know a lot about your story. But I want to start when everything came crashing down for you. And you mentioned this, there was a powerful moment when you were mopping your kitchen floor. And you were overwhelmed by these three businesses that you had started and that they were failing, right? And can you just walk us through like what led to that meltdown and how you felt in that exact moment? Because I think it's a very common feeling for entrepreneurs.
Yeah. I felt like a failure, right? So I had three businesses at the time. One that I had owned for about 8 years at that point in time, and it was dying a slow death, and it really took a significant decrease in revenue. We were in a industry that was just falling, getting weak, declining, and so we were just trying to get a bigger piece of a shrinking pie, and so that was kind of a slow death. And then because of that, I started two other companies, and I knew I needed to do something. So I started these two other companies at the same time. And one was a franchise where we help people sell things on eBay. And the other was a mailing company where we processed mail for big companies in Columbus, like JP Morgan Chase. We did a lot of their mortgage notifications. So we sent out home equity checks and escrow checks and statements. All the big hospitals in town, we processed their mail. But at that time in my mailing company, we had one client that was 80% of our revenue and about 90% of our profit. And we just invested like hundreds of thousands of dollars in equipment, machines. I had 12 employees. I had substantial debt starting this company. And we got word that week that they were bringing it in-house. They were no longer going to use an external vendor to process their mail. And we're talking lots of mail, hundreds of thousands of pieces of mail a day we process for them. And also that week, the eBay store was continuing to lose money. We were losing $1,000 a day, and we were about 6 months into that. After spending all this money, opening the store, all the build out, the PR, the advertising.
Because this was actually a really brick and mortar eBay store. Like this is back in the day. Like, because I don't think a lot of people listening now, you got to remember.
Yeah.
They probably don't even remember those because that was a short-lived thing, I think, for like actual eBay stores
right.
and communities.
Yeah.
But you were trying to like take the internet and then put it into Main Street.
Yeah, it was a franchise, and my business partner loved eBay at the time, and he was always finding deals on eBay, and he's like, we gotta do something, right? So we had this declining business that wasn't fun, and we saw the eBay wave, and like, let's do something. So we had this idea of opening like 14 stores in Ohio. We bought this franchise. We were, at the time we were super excited about the opportunity, and I thought, well, this is great. I'm going to be a major regional franchisor or franchisee of these set of eBay stores. So, we heard about this concept out in California, and the owners were in the retail business already. They had a successful franchise in the food business, and we thought, well, sure enough, they're very competent. They know what we're doing. And so we bought into that lock, stock, and barrel, and it was a horrible business model. And they told us, don't do anything. Don't make any decisions without following our model. And so they told us that the model they had was that if something was $30 or more on eBay, then it was worth taking in. And because we would make a third of that, we'd make $10 and the client would get $20. And so we thought that was the model, and we were just not making money at all. We were losing money left and right. And what could go wrong in that business was going wrong. Like, our payment system would fail, so we couldn't get money out to our clients. We couldn't get money in. We couldn't get products shipped. I mean, we had people negative reviews on eBay. It was a mess. It was an absolute mess, and it was a nightmare. And so 6 months into this, I had a breakdown. And so that week, I got big news in all three companies that we weren't going to make it. We weren't going to succeed. And my kids were tiny. I think my daughter was 4, my son was 1, and my wife was, I think, out running errands or something, and I'm mopping the floor. I think it was a Saturday or something, and that was one of my duties, was to mop the floor. And the song I hated was on the Christian radio. It was played all the time, and I hated this song. Like, I just
What song was it?
I can't. I don't even want to. I think I subconsciously forgot the song, but
right.
It was either Mercy Me or Casting Crown song, and it was just
Gotcha.
like this depressing song, and then the weight of the world hit me, and I felt like a failure. I thought I was going to lose this house that we just bought. Like, we just bought this big house. I'm like, man, I am done. Right. And so I was on the floor. I was crying, and I'm like, there's no way. There's no way. And so that was a critical moment in my career.
Wow. Looking back, do you think there were any warning signs that you ignored before like reaching that point of like total meltdown?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Like, let's try to help some, because there's going to be some people that listen to this today that could be in that moment right now, but like, let's try to like help a couple of them out to like not get to that point.
Well, the first warning sign, this whole eBay store concept, I realized that, probably a month into it, that I didn't really want to do this. Like, this is not fun for me. I don't have any.
Was it your business partner's idea?
Yeah, it was their idea. And so it was a husband and wife team, and we were friends, and we had the one business together. So it was their idea, and they were super excited about it. And I got excited about the potential, about building a business, about employing people, having influence on their lives, making money, of course. But when I looked deep down, the reason that I went into this was I was trying to please them. And it took me several months later to realize that they were acting almost like a godlike figure in my life, where, I was trying to get everything approved by them. And my wife and I were, we would like funnel everything through them in terms of our own family stuff and whatever. So I realized them, and I was praying about it one day, and I had this like flash, and where like there was like this picture of God in the background. Like, I know I don't really know, it was like a fuzzy image, and then my friends were like these giant figures in front of God, and I couldn't see God. And once I realized this, like they shrunk down to be super minute, tiny individuals, and I could see God.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm like, oh my gosh, the last 8 years I've been trying. I've not been really doing what God wants me to do and doing, what I want to do and what my family wants me to do. It's really been all about pleasing them. And going into another business with the same set of partners. And I didn't know how to unravel that. And when I started the mailing company at the same time, and I actually had a different set of partners, those set of friends were devastated. They thought I betrayed them because I started this other business. And I'm like, well, I'm really excited about this mailing company, and I need to provide for my family, and I'm going to work super hard. But they saw me as betraying their friendship, and so we had to deal with that. And that fallout.
Do you think they had some? Do you think that was a legitimate feeling that they had? Like looking back now, like do you think that or would you have done things maybe a little bit differently?
It was
because it's hard to be here. It's hard to serve two masters, right?
Right. Yeah.
And like we always talk about that, especially for visionaries, right? They're like, oh, we see that opportunity. Yes. Well, if we say yes to like more than one thing, that means our focus is going to get split, right? And then if you have another partner over here and you have another partner over here, it's like almost like you're cheating on them,
right?
I mean, it's like and it's like I don't know how else to explain that because we all know entrepreneurs like that. I mean, we were like that.
Yeah.
So once we give up on one idea, then we go over here. And it's like
yeah. I think their feelings were legitimate, and I think some of it is that they were trying to control and influence us. And if I had really done the right thing, I would have said no to the eBay franchise experience and said no to my business partners and said, you guys go do that. I bless that. Let me know how I can support you, but I'm not feeling it. Like if I was really honest, and then if I had waited a month or two, I would have been able to go all in on the mailing company, and that would have been the right thing to do. Yeah. So it created a huge mess for a couple of years, and I had to unwind that. And
so after you had that mop on the floor moment, what action steps or did you realize, did you have to make any changes right away, or did you kind of sit in that pain for a while, or?
I sat in the pain, and then honestly, I prayed for a mentor to come in my life. And a friend of mine said, you need to meet with this guy named Hugh. And so I met with Hugh, and he's like, it's really a shame what you're going through. You need to declare bankruptcy and be done. And he's like, unfortunately, I have a full client list right now, and I can't, you can't afford me. I charge $200 an hour. So I was devastated. Like he told me I declare bankruptcy, which I really was, it was a kind of an ethical and moral thing that, I borrowed this money and I gave my word that I was going to pay it back. And I felt like it would be a form of stealing for me at that point in life. So this other guy I reached out to, he was in my church, and he's like this old school, World War II era business guy. Like he told me stories about where, he was running a business and he had the IRS coming in. He was telling his people to shred documents and all this. I mean, this was this guy, just a really strong business guy. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to reach out to him. So we sat down for lunch, and I remember him drawing on a legal pad. Okay, Alec, you got these 3 businesses. You got this one that's dying a slow death. You have this eBay store that's not making any money. And you have this mailing company that's doing really well profit-wise. He's like, and you have all this debt. So, this is the roadmap. So you're gonna sell the eBay business and get as much money as you can. And then you're going to do whatever you can in the mailing business to hold on to your big clients so they don't pull things in-house. And that's exactly what happened. So over the next 6 months, which was a torturous 6 months, that was the plan. So I found a buyer for the eBay store.
So we bought a failing eBay store.
We had turned it around, so it's making money,
okay.
Right?
Okay.
So it was profitable. So we had lost all
you're
of
really
our,
just selling your franchise, right? Like you're just like passing that franchise on to someone else,
right?
And just like,
yeah,
get out of here.
Yeah. And so we had turned it around, and I neglected to say that the way we started making money is I did a simple break-even analysis, and I realized we weren't making any money if we sold something at $30. We needed to sell something at $60 to make any money. And so we started saying no to anything under $60 value. We started making money. And so instead of losing $1,000 a day, we started making $1,000 a day. But I realized that I didn't want to be in this business, and it was going to take us another 4 years to recoup this money. And I did not want to be tied to this business for 4 years. So we put it up for sale, and we had some buyers interested, and they bought it for us. And so we cut our losses. We got out of that.
Cool.
Yeah.
What when did you determine that, through that adversity, that you shaped a new purpose for your life? What was that like? And was there a moment after that mopping the floor that you're like, man, I need to set up myself to a new purpose?
Yeah. So number one, I learned not to have 3 businesses at once, and not to start 2 new businesses at the same time by running a 3rd business. So, the 3 streams of income is great advice.
Pro tip for you entrepreneurs out there.
Yeah. So that was number one. Number 2 is to not to go into debt to start something that's not a proven concept. And we didn't do enough due diligence with the current eBay stores. So that was another one. And then the third thing was, in the mailing company, I met some really great people that planted seeds for what I'm doing today. And if it had not been for my time in the mailing company and really understanding how to hire effectively, I would not have started Vision Spark in 2012. So it was providential that I met these 3 mentors of mine that took me under their wing and really shaped our hiring for the mailing company.
Well, you said something earlier that you put this one couple up on a little bit of a pedestal, maybe in front of God, and I know that we've talked about you having partners and always feeling like you needed somebody to kind of be with you. Let's rewind a little bit and go back to your childhood, right? And these underlying beliefs. I think you mentioned you're originally from New Jersey,
right?
And you moved over here when you were 13?
Yeah.
And, you kind of felt alone, right? You told me you never really, I think you never really had a teacher or coach that was really impactful in your life.
Correct.
I feel like me and you are very similar in that world. I never had anybody that I'm like, oh wow, no one took me under their wing, and so how did those early experiences, you think, shape, the way you saw yourself, especially back then? But then also, how did it also give you your potential as well, to go search for that and fight for that, to eventually get to where you're at today?
Yeah. I mean, that's a really deep question. I think part of it was that, I realized when I was probably about 15 that I actually had leadership skills, and I had gotten cut from the high school soccer team, it was my dream to play soccer in high school, and I had gotten cut. I went to this really big school, lots of politics, and the kids that were cut were actually better than the kids on the team. And so, but I was devastated. And so I went to this small church, and we didn't have enough money. The church didn't have enough money to have a youth pastor. So the senior pastor said, okay, we're gonna have leaders here, and I want to vote for the leader, the president of the youth group, and they all voted for me. And so that's where I started my development of having some confidence and not needing that, not needing that coach or mentor, but just having some confidence that, I can do some things. I can organize, I can inspire, I can create vision, I can delegate, I can galvanize. All of this was happening when I was in my teens. So for 4 years, I was the president of our youth group. We grew the youth group, developed great friends, and it was a pretty impactful moment for me. And then in college, I took that one step further and created another organization in college, and further developed my leadership skills, and had some ideas, and worked with different people on campus, and created this really large organization. And And so I think if I had that coach, mentor, teacher in school, it would have totally derailed my path of where I was meant to go.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, do you think that, like, because you didn't have that, you had to, like, you gave to those other kids and the people that you were serving in a way that, like, you wish that somebody would have gave to you, right?
Yeah.
Because that's how I kind of felt.
Right.
Like I became a servant because no one served me. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to go out and model this. Like this is how you should be, because like no one had it, right? It was almost have a lack of, like, an inverse happened to you.
Right. The underlying thought is wanting to help other people.
Yeah. But then also having this belief too at the end of the day where, you know, sometimes we don't feel like we're good enough. Like, why is nobody mentoring me? Why is nobody coaching me? Why is nobody teaching me? Like, why am I not good enough?
Right.
Why am I not good enough to make the team?
Yeah.
Whether it's athletically or politically.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, why am I not good enough? And so where do you think, like, the whole I'm not enough on my own, because, you know, you also then searched out partners and things like that, you know, in your business life because you thought you needed to be around that. So, like, where do you think that comes from for you and people in general?
Yeah. Well, I've always had a desire to be an entrepreneur, and but I didn't know when that was coming. But I also am very collaborative, like, and I want to do things together with people, right? So let's do this together has been a mindset that I've had. And I always thought that meant having a business partner, right? And so you have this formal tie to someone that may have different interests than you and different time capacity, different talents, different drives, different desires. And so for over 20 years of my business career, I always had a business partner. And it was not until about 7 years ago that I didn't have a business partner. And man, it's so freeing not to have a business partner. It's important to have great people in your business and hire the right leaders, but to be able to lead a company without a partner has just been a game changer for me. Because
there's always, like, those decisions, and somebody else has a different viewpoint. Whether you guys commit to that decision or not, it's always in the back of your head, like, oh, I know he's not. Oh, we're going with my idea this time, or we're going with his idea this time, or, like, there's always this, like, energy drain, right? We're like, because you want to serve them too, right? And, like, it's like we just have all these different masters,
yes,
and it just becomes really, really tough, right? To you know, we have our spouse at home, we have our kids, right? We have God that we're trying to always do things right, and then we have a business partner. Now we have all of our employees, and we have our customers, right. We have our vendors. Yeah, it, like, gets really, like, stressful.
Very much so.
Yeah. That's so interesting. And then, like, when was it, you know, I have you read the book Shine that Gino wrote? Have you read that
I've read parts of it.
So, you know, like, he talks a lot about, like, you know, we have this, most people, like, work outside in, but, like, truly, like, if you can start to, like, just be your true self and, like, let that come out, you know, it's a much better, you know, way of life, right?
Right.
And I feel like you have that same type of thing. Like, you know, the outside affected you for so long, but now over the last maybe 7 years, you're leading from the inside out.
Yeah.
How much of a difference of like Alec is there, you know, like, you know, letting your freak flag fly, like Gino says.
It's totally, I mean, it's freeing, it's energizing, it's joyful. And so in that, you know, like, going back to the mailing company, I was the integrator in that mailing company. I was the COO. And which my employees now, I tell them that, they laugh. They're like, what?
I'm laughing now because, like, I know, like, it's
how in the world? But my business partner, you know, I would say he was a flaming visionary, as, you know, Bob Schenefeld says. He was so extreme that I had to counteract, you know. So he was willing to borrow all sorts of money. He was, you know, just extend our credit line and buy all this equipment and you know, just very, very spontaneous. And I started putting systems in place and processes and being fiscally conservative. And so I was the integrator. But once I bought out my last business partner 7 years ago, like, I was able to become my true self, that true visionary, and like lead from within me. And I think some of it too is I you know, my own insecurities growing up, or in my early career, I felt like to be a really good business owner, you had to be, you know, very tight, and you had to be, you know, fiscally conservative and analytical and very business oriented, and you know, business plans and structure, and and P&L and all sorts of management stuff. And that's not the entrepreneur, right? That's someone who wants to go in corporate business and the corporate world. And so for an entrepreneurial business, you need a visionary that is, which is me now, right? Is to have a bunch of ideas and be very relational and willing to take risks and all this stuff that is counter to the previous self, the old self, which was not able to shine using Gino's book.
Yeah. That feeling, because I go back to this business partner thing, because you're right. There's like this need. I think first of all, humans crave connection. Like that's why, we're supposed to have a spouse, right? Like God, like that's why, supposed to be with another person. In business, it's that whole relationship between the visionary and integrator. So we don't know what that is before somebody tells us, right? And you didn't know that. We probably didn't understand those terms back in those days, right?
No.
And we just thought that like we had to be both, and if we couldn't be both, well, we need somebody else because like we need that like yin to the yang,
right?
But what it sounds like is like you basically found two yins and didn't have a yang.
That's right. Yeah.
And so was that like feeling, did you go out and seek that, or was that just opportunistic to where like, it just kind of happened, or did you go out and seek that business partner, or did it just like kind of come about and like someone sucked you in, or did you suck people in, or like how did that work?
They sucked me in. So they saw my business savviness. And so they reached out to me and said, hey, we need you to help us in this business. So
they probably didn't even clearly know what that help looked like. They just knew they could see there was something about you.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, oh, someone needs me, right? Like you put on your cape and you went into...
I'm the hero. Yep.
Wow. There's so many people out there that resonate with that. One of the things that is in the 10 disciplines that Gino's been talking to me about is saying no more often, right? But when you're young and you're in your 20s, I mean, like, you don't even know that word. Like, that's like yes to everything. I mean, like, and we'll just see what happens later, What have you learned about the art of saying no? And is it still hard for you to say no today? Because like from someone that's always wanting to serve people and get people to like them and like, like, is it hard to say no?
It's still hard. I've gotten a lot better. At saying no, but it's still hard for me, as a people pleaser and not wanting to let people down and not really being clear on what I truly want, right? So it's when you don't know what you truly want, you'll say yes to everything. And for me right now, it's trying to say no to good ideas. Like I think it was Tim Cook that said, we say no to good ideas every day so we can say yes to great ideas. And really trying to differentiate between saying no to good ideas, because good ideas are bountiful, right? But they may only impact your business, 10%, 20%, maybe 2x, right? But a great idea could be a 10x idea.
And then having the patience to wait 4 or 5 months or maybe 4 or 5 years for it to come, because you might not even be able to let it matriculate if you said yes to all that little busy stuff that's only going to 2x your business.
Yeah.
But like if you waited another year or two, there could be something out there that's going to 10x it, right?
Right.
It's having that discipline. And because then we always feel like, especially with visionaries, it's like we feel like we can get bored a little bit, or like, I need to do something. I need to feel useful, right? Like we have this need to feel useful, right? And so part of it is like, well, my team needs me to come up with something else, so that way we can hire a few more people or do a couple more things. And at the end of the day, I'm starting to learn, that patience and just letting things kind of happen is good, because it's so adversary to what's in my brain and how I was kind of like brought up, like how it worked. And so like that eBay, like when you go back, like that's the first, like that was one of the big no's that you should have said no to, right? The eBay store.
Right. Absolutely.
Like, hey, let's keep focused on this business. What was the other business that you had? The one that was failing. What was it? What was the industry?
The industry was in the collectibles industry. Right.
So it was in the collectibles. So it was similar in a similar line, right? Just maybe a different format.
Yeah.
Gotcha. But you should have like tried to figure out how to improve that, or get rid of it, not start an eBay store to make it worse, right? Because
right,
and then go hard in the mailing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think a true entrepreneur is like they're very future oriented, and they would have cut ties a lot sooner, right?
Even with the failing in just the first one,
right?
Like just been like, all right, like let's just stop this one, let's go start something else,
right? Yeah.
Could have made the eBay store even better if you would have stopped the other one. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know. You would at least found out to get the $60 faster than $30.
That's right.
You would have had more time to be like, hey,
that's right.
Like this math doesn't work.
Yep.
How many more times can we lose $1,000 a day? Like, oh no, but you were busy doing other things. Oh man, I can see
Yeah.
that happening so much. That's so interesting. What you talk about something a lot too, like, and I think this is common for visionaries and entrepreneurs, is the conflict side of things, avoiding conflict. So like, I'm sure these are dear friends of yours,
Yeah.
right? Like when you're starting these businesses, right? And like just not wanting to also tell them exactly what you want. Tell us a little bit about how that affected you back then, and how do you handle that now? And like, are you getting better at it? What's the journey with like avoiding conflict and confronting conflict?
Yeah, I mean, I've struggled for years in avoiding conflict, right? So, because anytime there was conflict in my childhood, or even in my 30s and 40s, it was always a blow up, always a misunderstanding, always hurt feelings. And so I avoided conflict, right? And I would often put my foot in my mouth too, like, and say the wrong thing, and then I'd have to take it back, and it was a misunderstanding. So I would avoid it altogether. And even on the professional front, like when you start a business, even though we're experts at hiring, when I first started out at Vision Spark trying to hire the right people, I really wasn't great at bringing on the right people myself, right? I was better. But I brought on people that, friends and neighbors, and that was really hard to have, conversations with those individuals that are employees, but they're also your friend and neighbor, and be able to have those tough conversations. So something I've learned is not to hire friends and family, so don't do that anymore. Also to set boundaries early, and saying, these are my expectations of you. Here's good behavior. This is how I'm going to measure your performance. And here are things that drive me crazy that you could get fired for. And so let's just avoid those altogether, right? And so just being very clear up front. So that really helps in bringing on the right people and knowing expectations, and then also letting them know that you don't tolerate drama, gossip, politics in your business. And so not going there is really good. And then I've learned to be a little more truthful and speak the truth in love, and speak it earlier, because someone like me who's a people pleaser, you can let things fester and grow and build, and then the timing's wrong, and then it's really hard to come back to whatever that issue is and to make it right. And so it's better to be confrontational sooner when it's smaller than later when it's bigger.
Yeah, because I'm sure you're thinking back, like in the early days, there's lots of times you probably just avoided it altogether.
Oh yeah,
and then it kind of got real clunky.
Yeah,
because eventually, it rears its ugly head later. Correct?
Totally.
Like every single time.
Right.
There's nothing that ever can just get brushed under the rug that doesn't actually appear.
Yeah. Right.
That's so interesting. What one of the insights too that I'm working on is learning how to be still long enough to like process some of this. Like, what do I really want? How do I want to handle this person? How do I want to handle this conversation? But as entrepreneurs, we're like always going a million miles an hour. And then a lot of times it's not even towards something. It's usually sometimes we're just running from something.
Right. Yeah.
Almost mentally.
Yeah.
Right. Have you had any instances in your life, and I know you're a faith-based person, where like you've learned how to like get a little bit stiller to like be able to like actually see what I should be doing in life? Because I also envision the entrepreneur out there, after hearing this, are like, they're gonna go have all these conversations with all these people, and it's gonna blow up too because they're going fast, right?
Yeah.
And there's got to be some tact on how you do some stuff, and then you also got to make sure what you're doing is the right reasons why, right? So can you talk a little bit about stillness?
Yeah. So you definitely need, in the US they talk about a clarity break. So you need a clarity break. I'm a part of Strategic Coach, and there's a tool called the impact filter.
Yeah, I've heard of that impact filter.
And it's just there's the fast filter and impact filter, but essentially is, what's the goal? What do you want to accomplish? What does success look like? And it's really about selling yourself first before you go and try to sell it to someone else, whether it's a confrontation. You really have to go to one of your leaders on your team and say, hey, we need to talk about something. So I'll do an impact filter on that, or it could be even an idea, right? And so Dan Sullivan, who came up with it, is the most, you have to sell yourself first before you try to sell somebody else, right? And it's an amazing tool as well. Even like when you have an important meeting coming up, you do an impact filter ahead of time. So there's, very clear in the goals for that meeting. What do you want the outcomes to be? Who's doing what. And so it really is impactful.
That's interesting. Can you share a moment with me? Because I keep going back to this because I want to really help people of a time when you don't have to give names, protect the innocent, but
Right.
when you were really avoiding a confrontation with someone, like when you were like really like knowing in your mind, man, like something's not right, but man, I really don't know how to do this. Like I really need this person, but I really just don't need him to be like that. Like, how long did it fester? How long did it build up? And then like when you were conscious enough about it to actually have the conversation, how did the conversation go? And then what's been the reaction since then? And like, can you tell me like, maybe, I don't know, if you have a good story and maybe a bad story,
Right. I mean, there's a lot of them. The one is, I hired a friend, and that friend was very talented in what they did for my business, but they did not play well with others in the sandbox. So it was causing a lot of rift in my team, and they were someone that was amazing performer. They had they had 60-80% of the important client load on their shoulders.
They're the star.
They were the star, but they didn't have the core values, right? So
it's like Antonio Bryant for the Steelers back in the day.
Yeah, there you go.
Football.
Yeah.
I just think about that. Like they're like they're the star, but like they have some issues.
Well, it's that 2x2 matrix that Jack Welch talks about, where if you have someone who's got your core values and plays well with others and they're a high performer, then they're a star in your team, right? But if they are a high performer and they don't play well with others in sandbox and they don't have your core values, then it's called a terrorist, right? So they hold your company hostage, right?
Oh yeah, I've seen.
So that. And I've done some talks on this, and we have some articles on our website about it. But and then you have the puppies; those are individuals that have your core values but aren't performing well. And then you have the rats. They're called rats because it's the opposite of a star, and they have low in core values and low in productivity.
I think what I struggle with. I have a lot of puppies.
Yeah,
I love puppies.
Puppies are great.
I know, but like we don't ever win we don't like, we're the nicest dogs that don't have any money. Because I get like that, because like I go from the extremes, right? Like I don't want to have like, because I sometimes think that like because I've had those people, the high performers that are the stars, but they're not so great for the teamwork. It's like, I don't want to be around that, even though the money's good.
Yeah.
Like the money's not everything, right?
Right.
But I also then, once you have a bunch of puppies, then it's like, all right, well, we're struggling to like grow up and get old together and like make money. So it's very interesting.
Yeah.
So you had that conversation with this person, your friend.
Yeah. So
and this was like a friend from way back.
Yeah.
Like,
it was a friend, and then I had another individual on the team that was a great employee, but they got to a point where they couldn't work together anymore. And so I reached out to a mentor. I said,
so you were at a crossroads.
I was at a crossroads, and I reached out to a mentor, and he was nice enough to come in and do some digging and find out what was really going on. But he came to me and said, Alec, you're probably going to lose both. I go, what? I can't lose both, And he's like, you probably are. And the dear friend that worked for me a long time, she came to me and told me she couldn't work with another employee on the team.
Gotcha.
Like, I can't work with this person anymore.
Yeah.
And they were a rock star. Like, I'm like, what? If you can't work with her, what's that say about you? Like, you can't work with anybody right now. And that's where I got really firm. And I just said, here's what we're going to do. I want you to finish up all your projects that you're working on. How long are they going to take you to finish? And she's like, 45 days. I'm like, all right. So at the end of 45 days, I want you to take 1 month paid leave. I'm going to pay you for 1 month. And at the end of that month, we're going to talk about your performance and your role here and what the future looks like. And so in the middle of all that, COVID hit. And everyone went remote. And she ended up working with her husband's company, and she got a job offer to work with her husband's company. And what was really cool, they were having marital struggles before that, and they ended up rekindling their marriage. So it was like, it was ordained, it was providential.
She needed that space.
Right. But it was exactly what we needed. And that.
How did she react to that conversation when you sat her down and said, like, hey, like, finish everything up, and I'm going to give you a month off so that way you can think about some things, and then we're going to reconvene? Like, how did that conversation go?
It got her attention. It really got her attention because I don't.
But it was well received, though.
It was well received, but she needed me to be strong and firm because I probably wasn't strong and firm.
Are you still friends with them today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Absolutely.
So that's a good story.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Anytime that you try to do any other stories, what about the other person that had the problem? Did they leave or
they put their notice in, and
you couldn't save that one?
No, and that one, it wasn't as bad from a business standpoint because they didn't have a lot of work at the time, and they weren't. I was trying to find a place for them in the business, and so that one, it wasn't as big of a financial loss or business impact, but it was an impact of having a great employee leave.
But it taught you, like, we don't want that to happen again. So
right.
how do we not make sure that happens?
Yes, again? Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, those are good lessons. Thanks for sharing those. You know what? So I think of, like, being a visionary, right? We're parents of our team members, our employees, right? And then we also, you have 3 kids. Do you ever feel like you have that same tendency to, like, man, like, I really don't want to, like, have to tell my kid that I don't like this right now because I just want to, like, we're just starting to get along better, and I don't want to just keep always correcting. Like, how do you transfer some of those skills in business to then, like, also being a parent, right? Because and then being also open and honest, right? But still loving at the same time, and it gets muddy, it gets confusing.
I don't know if I figure that out.
All right, so that's good.
I think one of the things I've heard about John Wooden, one of the greatest basketball coaches,
UCLA,
of all time, right? But I think during his last couple years of coaching, they had a research team follow him around and record all of his coaching, and they found that the majority of his what he said to the players were instructional. So it wasn't criticism and it wasn't positive. It was instructional. So I think it was about 80%.
So like coaching, like he was literally coaching.
Coaching, yeah. And we don't see a lot of that today in at least youth sports, right? But it was instructional. And that's kind of how I've been, I think as a parent, has been instructional. Where I probably could have been better as a parent is being more encouraging and positive, and they say that, for every criticism, a kid needs about 10 positives. But yeah.
What was it like for you growing up? Like, how was your dad with you? Like, was he tough?
He was tough. Yeah, he was.
Not a lot of positive.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So,
early in my childhood, my dad he was working full time and going to school at night, trying to get his degree. And so I didn't see a lot of him, but when I did see him, it was fun. He would take us to the soccer fields, and we'd have to put up the nets on the soccer field in New Jersey. And, we would hang out together. He would take me to New York Cosmos soccer games. And so, that was a lot of fun. But when we moved to Ohio, he got really into his career, and we didn't see him a lot. And but when we did see him, he was pretty tough. Yeah.
And so then I would think, I don't know, for me, there's like some of that's going to obviously just rub off because you don't know any other way to be with your kids. But then sometimes we get like focus on the opposite and be like too nice and too easy, right? Like I know that I go through that.
Yeah. Like
with Sam, my 10-year-old, I'm like, man, sometimes I'm just telling him I love him all the time, like I'm proud of you, like like because like I feel like sometimes I didn't hear that enough. But then I'm trying to figure out like where that balance is of like coaching, and then I'm thinking like 10, he's 10. I know you got a couple of kids that are older. How do they receive that? At 10, at 15, at 20. Hopefully like as they get older, like 30s, and it goes a little bit better.
Yeah. And every kid is different, right?
Yeah, and every kid's different at the same time. Just no different in your business, right? You have all these different humans in your business.
Yep.
It's the same way. I know that a lot of what you've created at Vision Spark came off of pain, right? Like mishaps, struggles, things that you've went through personally, and then obviously, being around other entrepreneurs, kind of saw that. And so how did those hiring struggles that you did, picking the right who's, right? Whether they're business partners or whether they're people functioning in the business, how did that kind of inform your mission at Vision Spark?
Yeah. So it was in that mailing business that, we were firing about 7 out of 10 people we hired. And I kind of looked at myself in the mirror and like, what am I doing wrong? Like, I'm running a really good business here. We're very profitable. We're putting some competitors out of business. We were nominated for Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year, but what the heck, I can't hire. This is wrong. And so I reached out to my mentor, Dave, and I said, what am I doing wrong? And he said, Alec, are you using any sort of assessment tool in the hiring process? And I said, no. And so we started using assessment tools. And instead of us firing 7 out of 10 people, 7 out of 10 people stayed with us. And so
you went from 7 to 3.
Right. So huge gain, right? Especially in those entry level rank and file jobs, which is really a high number. But we had, it's kind of a funny story, but at that time we were desperate to have an office manager. We went through so many office managers, and I mean, some really funny things happened. Like, one didn't pass a drug test. Another one actually left to go join a cult, which was the weirdest thing. Like left Ohio and went
to go drink Kool-Aid somewhere.
Went to Wisconsin to join a cult. It was really, really strange. And so we were
that's just gotta be like, what the heck is going on?
It was strange. And
I've had those stories. Imagine in the construction business, like we got a lot of people, got a lot of interesting humans coming through here.
Yeah. I mean, the original one that left, she was awesome, but she left to start a family, and we always tried to find someone like her. But we went through like 4 in a year. And so we were trying to find a really good office assistant, and we put ads out, and we were striking out. And this one woman came in, and she just nailed the interview. She just was tremendous in the interview. And I had her take that assessment tool, and the results of that assessment tool were awful. And it showed all these problems with her. And I'm like, well, that can't be true. Like, I'm going to check her references. And so I checked her references, and this is before I knew how to interview, before I knew how to check references. And the references that she gave all said she was great. So we hired her, and then within 3 weeks, we fired her. Everything the assessment said about her was spot on. Like, she was going to be a super slow learner. She wouldn't remember things. She wouldn't be able to retain things. She would have low attention to detail. She'd be disorganized. She'd be insecure. She'd be a social butterfly. Everything the assessment said was spot on. And so I said, never again will I hire against that assessment tool. And so fast forward, I sold my interest in that mailing business, started consulting with companies. I was helping them improve their cash flow, profitability, marketing, sales, all of that. And I saw in those companies that they all had significant people issues, especially when it comes to their leaders. And I made a conclusion that a lot of these companies weren't having cash flow issues as much as they were having people issues.
87% of issues are people issues.
Right.
Yeah.
So in 2012, I started Vision Spark with the passion of helping entrepreneurs, especially when it comes to leaders, hiring the right leaders. And so that's how Vision Spark was born.
Well, because I don't know. I think we all, you said it. I know for me, we hire people that we know, and trust at the beginning of our entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah.
We hire people for likability rather than competency, right?
Yeah.
And we don't really have a good metric other than they actually want to work for us. All right, let's go. Oh, they want to partner with me? All right, let's go. That was it. That's the test.
That is the test. Yeah.
And it's such a shift, right? To go from that stage to then hiring Billy Bean does for the Oakland A's, right? Like Moneyball, right?
Yeah.
Where it's
very analytical.
Well, yeah, we're using, obviously we're still hiring people for their values, right? That's the first part. All right, cool. I think everybody does that to a degree, some better than others, but it's that whole other competency part. Are they actually wired for that job, right?
Yeah.
Because that's where a lot of the pain happens for, entrepreneurs. if they're doing things like, you mentioned you were a CEO for a while. Like, I mean, I can only imagine how painful that was. And you had to expend so much energy to be good at. Not that you can't, because you can be good at anything. I think my friend Brian Alexander says it's like a rubber band, and like, anybody could stretch the rubber band, but eventually that rubber band's going to break. And it's like trying to figure out where everyone's rubber band is and like what things are going to break it. And like, we should probably not have them do those things in our business. But a lot of times when we're posting a job position, we're hiring, they'd like see the culture. They see you like, yeah, I want to come.
Yeah.
And they'll say anything. They're good salespeople in those interviews. I mean, some of the best salespeople in the world are people that need a job.
That's right. They're the best interviewers, right?
And we're the easiest suckers because like we like to buy things.
That's right.
We like to say yes to things because we don't want to have to go out and like have to keep looking.
Yeah,
that's exhausting.
Yeah,
no one wants that. No one wants to be the best at the hiring process when you're starting your business because you're like all focused on the widget, right? Like you're focused on the widget.
Yeah.
Man, what are there? I mean, I know you have your own. Now I know. See, I know the end story about Vision Spark. Well, the one that's being, you guys have your own assessment. But what are some assessments out there that if someone wanted to use that you think are decent assessments that are out there?
Yeah. Besides ours?
Well, besides yours, because yours isn't like available for $50 on a website somewhere. Like. Right? Or is it? I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe we should start sending people to the website. I don't know. I forget.
No, it's reasonable, especially when it comes with a consulting and consultation. So it's not just, hey, read this assessment and figure it out. It comes with a consultation, and you match someone for their job and competencies, and they're going to.
Is that like the right hire fit or the right fit profiler?
It's called the talent impact profile.
Talent impact profile.
Yeah.
Tip.
Right.
The tip assessment.
Yeah.
The tip assessment.
Yeah.
So I'm talking about, and it's, they have to talk to someone, right? There's a lot of people that are afraid to like talk to someone.
I think you did the right fit profiler, which is the interview and the assessment together.
Which was like a lot more intense.
That's more intense and a lot more money. Yeah. Just the assessment tool itself is very reasonable. Yeah.
And then you can use that for multiple people and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Well, that's cool.
Yeah. So there are good assessments out there. There's a lot of them, right? There's, I think, over 1,100 assessments.
You're not allowed to name any of them, are you?
Sure, I can.
I'm just asking, like, for like the ones that, like, if somebody just wanted to go hide on a website, like, for instance, I'll just tell you a couple that I used back in the early days. I used, not necessarily for hiring, more for like just trying to understand how to communicate with someone and like see like what they were like disc profiles.
Yeah.
The disc assessment was the first time I had a consultant come in here and say, hey, do you have a disc on all your people? I'm like, what's a disc? Well, you should do one. Well, then when I took my own first disc assessment, I was like, oh my gosh, like, yes, that's me. Yes, that's me. Like I'm a high D, high I. No S, no C. Like that is just like I am bipolar when it comes to those two.
Well, I can see that.
Yeah. I'm 100 I, 94 D, 22 S, and 2 C.
Okay.
Like I have no like organization. That's not me. And so, but then when I read that, I finally felt, oh my gosh, somebody get like that's me. Like it's okay. Like that's me. Like look at all these awesome strengths. And that's when I realized I need to put people around me that have where I'm weak at. Like like I'm not organized. I'm not that organized. I'm better now. But like back then, like I am not organized and I need somebody to do that. And so that was the first one. And then I went to a show or somewhere and another consultant was like, strength finders. And I took the top 34 strengths. And when I like looked at that, I was like, yeah. And then I made all my people take it. I'm like, oh, look at you. Look at, like it was a fun team building experience.
Right.
And then when I got into the EOS world, they told me about Colby, right? And I know like Colby's the most interesting one to me because like I don't know as much about the inner workings of it because I've never had like a Colby consultant work with me. But like, I know I'm a 9 quick start, like after I did all those other ones, I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I am. I'm a high fact finder. I'm a big quick start, no follow through, no implementer in me. Yeah. But I knew that. So now I'm like, all right, well, I need to find someone with high follow through. Like if I hire an assistant, like I could quickly like take an assistant or somebody that's operating, I could quickly take a Colby and at least see if they got a high follow through. Like to me, like at the end of the day, like I need people in my life that are gonna finish strong. I think our buddy Patrick Lancioni calls it tenacity, right? On
the Working Genius.
On the Working Genius, the widget. Wandering, innovation, galvanizing,
discernment,
enablement,
tenacity.
Tenacity. Yeah. But so how did I think it's cool how like everyone has their own assessment. How did you decide? How did you come up with your own assessment? Did you have do you have a scientist that works at Vision Spark that like does that?
No,
did you come up with that? Like,
it's not as glamorous as that. So
I always wonder how these guys come up with their own assessments. Like Gino's a big fan of assessments. You know, all the EOS stuff. There's assessments everywhere.
Assessments, yeah, and they're mostly good. Like assessments for the most part are good. And
just questions and then output, right?
Yeah, and so. Like it's what is the assessment used for? Is it used for team building, right? That's a different assessment than for hiring, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You got to be careful on what you use to hire.
Yeah,
right.
But the assessments you mentioned, DISC, Colby, Working Genius, Strengths Finders, those are all great assessments, and it's great to know yourself and to know your team. So our assessment was done in the 1960s by these industrial psychologists, and it was geared towards executives in corporate America, like HR executives. And the assessment is, in my mind, the best assessment out there. And my company, we can choose any assessment we want to choose. We have that option, right? So we were using this assessment, and we have a really high success rate, like a 98% placement rate, 95% retention rate. And so the assessment tool that we use is really impactful. And so, and I was looking for other assessment tools out there that like, is there something else a little bit more modern that would have the same impact? And I couldn't find anything. And so I said, well, I'm going to start have my own assessment tool, right? So I looked into that, and that would take years of research, lots and lots of money, and me being a quick start, it would. We ain't got time for that. We don't got time for that. So I went back to the folks where we got the assessment from, and I said, hey, I would love to use your information because it's a phenomenal assessment, but I want to modernize it. I want it to be geared towards entrepreneurial companies, small business companies, and I want to update the language from the 1960s and 70s and 80s to modern day. Right. And so it took us about 18 months to do that, and we got it done. So
you just like work, because those people still exist, right?
Yeah.
So are you licensing their thing, and then you have your own like spin on it, which is like you're allowed to keep that, and like no one else has access to that kind of thing? Oh, that's cool.
So we have their backing, right? It would be, it'd be like, Bentley, or Rolls-Royce. So Bentley, the engine in a Bentley is an Audi engine, right? Or the engine in a Rolls-Royce is a BMW engine. So you have the backing of, in this case for Rolls-Royce, you have the backing of BMW that they're going to stand by the engine that they put in that Rolls-Royce, right? So it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, that's cool.
Where we have the backing, we have the support, but we have our own assessment marketplace. It's unique. No one else uses it.
Because it's geared towards entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And our clients absolutely love it because it's in their language and it's super effective. Yeah.
And you just call it the TIP assessment.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll put a link down for that. That's pretty cool. I know for me, like making the scientific decisions around the right people has really, really been important. It's like, it's one of those like hacks. It makes me look better as an entrepreneur too. Mm-hmm. And it creates a lot less heartache.
Yeah.
There's the whole dynamic is once you've done that, then you got to figure out how to keep them like working together with the team, making sure that we don't have, terrorists and, working with, other people and like causing, that's a whole nother podcast, whole nother people that we have to send them to, right?
Yeah.
To get them to play nice together in the sandbox.
Mm-hmm.
Your job is just to make sure we get the best person. And you pretty much really specialize in integrators, COOs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, but also other people in the leadership team, right?
Correct. Yeah. Everybody else in the leadership team and other high level positions too.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Just before we wrap up this show, because this has been really, really interesting, if there's something that you could tell an entrepreneur that's getting ready to have the kitchen floor mop meltdown, we could trademark that maybe if you want to, or their own version of that. What's one piece of advice that you would give to have them keep going, right?
Yeah. The future is bright. You have the ability to create the future you want. And there's really no situation there's not a solution for. And, with the right people behind you and with right prayer and, sky's the limit. And so there's always a solution. There's always a way to get out of a bad situation.
And what do you hope that I don't know if your kids are like mine, but like, they kind of know what dad does a little bit, but like, they're not really into that yet.
Yeah.
One day though, 20 years after they're in their business career, right? You know, whether they're in a workplace environment where there's like stuff like this happening, what do you hope your story teaches your children, or any entrepreneur about facing, adversity head on?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. I'm seeing some of it now in my daughter who's 24 and she's early in her career, and I see her with a phenomenal work ethic, working 60 hours a week, really being motivated. A year and a half into a company, she just got a huge promotion, which is unheard of. Like, I heard about her increase. I'm like, what? Like,
we don't give those out.
Yeah. And so like I'm seeing her make really sound business decisions. I'm seeing her reach out to mentors when she needs help. So some of it I'm seeing already. My son, I'm seeing him, he'll be 21 here in May, and he decided not to go to college. He went there for like a semester, and
he's like me, really. I can't.
Yeah. I mean, he did well. He got straight A's, and he started on the soccer team over seniors, and I mean, but he decided that he wanted a different avenue, and he's a guy who doesn't mind a challenge, and so he was a dispatcher for like a year and a half, and he decided, one area where I'm really weak in is actually communication to adults. And I know I need to get really better at communication with adults. So he had an opportunity to sell printers and copiers, and he took that opportunity to get better at communication. And he loves now being in that sales role where he can actually have impact on his own paycheck.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And once you get that taste, taste never leaves you.
So I'm just proud of them for both having their individual paths. And then my 14-year-old, I mean, she could be the president of the U.S. as far as I'm concerned, but she's super talented, and she's very entrepreneurial. We watch Shark Tank together a lot and talk about business ideas. And she also is talking about being an attorney someday. So we'll see. What do you hope?
What do they hope they learn? Are you going to teach them through your mistakes?
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You pretty open with them about like these challenges in life?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'd say, hey, I don't want you to make the same mistakes I did. Sometimes they got to make those mistakes.
Well, they got to make some, fail fast, right?
Yeah.
And try to get over with that. Yeah. That's good. What, looking ahead, if you wave a magic wand for Vision Spark and just think about like your own personal mission, like, 10 years from now, where do you see yourself? Where do you see Vision Spark? How else can you make an impact on entrepreneurs?
Yeah. I see Vision Spark being 10x our size now. And that we have an amazing group of team members right now, but that we still have even more team members that are having more impact, and then we're changing lives. When those entrepreneurs that are struggling and they don't know how to move forward, they're hitting a ceiling, they're working super hard and they can't figure out how to get their business to grow or to improve. And we can significantly change their lives by helping them hire the right leaders. And so we're just going to have much more impact in 10 years from now. And, much more impact in the community and with charities. And so that's where I see Vision Spark in 10 years from now. And that we're a household name, and, that we're a category of one.
Do you, I know obviously the entrepreneur, especially when you find them, they're number two man, they're a woman, like their right-hand person, like it works. Mm-hmm. Those are got to be some of the greatest, like, hey, when they see you at the next conference, or you give them a phone call like a year later, or 2 years later, or 5 years later, and they're just living their entrepreneurial dream because of the people that you've been able to help surround them. Like, what's that feeling like for you when you hear those stories?
Yeah. I mean, it's it is so, I mean, it just makes, it's just affirming that you're doing the right thing. Entrepreneurs are a unique individual, right? Like when I saw you at the summit, there's entrepreneurs, right? And it's just so great to be with other entrepreneurs in the room. But, every day when we're out and about, and whether it's at our kids' soccer games, you don't see entrepreneurs there. And so, but they do make the world go around, right? They hire, they're 90% of employees work for a small business. I mean, something crazy. So these entrepreneurs are truly making a difference. And when you can impact them, it is so rewarding.
And then do you have the same impact for the people that you go out and find? Like, do they give you as much credit, or do they even realize that like you put them in a great and amazing work environment, or is it not as much for them?
Yeah. The candidates. Yeah.
Yeah. Like for instance, if you hire someone in Integrator, and like, do they actually really know that it's like this vision spark thing? Like, I don't know, like, cause like, I know your relationship's always usually with the client, which is the entrepreneur, but like, where does that number 2 fit that like has a great job now for the next 5 years? Like, do you ever get those accolades?
Yeah, for sure. Like, we love it when that person we place, like the number 2, they reach back out and they said, we had such a great experience. I had such a great experience. We need a chief revenue officer. So can you help us find that person? And so that's amazing.
Oh yeah, because they're the ones that are in charge of going out and finding the rest of the team. So
right.
They become almost the client then, right?
Yeah. Or like, hey, we need you to build out our leadership team. I had an entrepreneur this week say, I really, he has an $11 million company, and he's like, Alec, I have failed. I don't know how to build out a leadership team. I don't know how I've gotten this far, but I need you to help me build out a leadership team. And so that's super rewarding. I mean, if he's at 11 million now without great leaders, just think when he has great leaders. So
I know a lot of people like that in my industry. Yeah. Because, roofing's a high ticket, hard thing. And like once you just get it going, there's not a lot of people that can keep, but the few that get to that level, they get there on their own sheer willpower, and it is amazing. But there's a lot of people I think that you can help in this industry. What makes you different? I don't mean to. I don't talk a ton about business on here, but I have to ask you because this is it's a key part of the freeing the entrepreneurial spirit. Yeah, is getting the right people at the company, so then the entrepreneur can go flap their wings, be more purpose driven. So like this is important. What makes you different than? And you might not even like this word, another recruiting company. Like, I don't even like to say that word because I know that probably makes you, yeah. But what is it? What's the difference, right? Like, because, I get all these emails, these spam emails, like from recruiters, like all of the time. Yeah. Like, what makes you different than all of that junk I get in my inbox? Yeah.
And just like some funny nuances, like I used to have people call me and say, hey, my US implementer said to call you, or my consultant said to call you. And I just want to let you know, Alec, right before we get going, I don't like recruiters. They say that right away. And I'm like, hey, that's great. I don't like recruiters either, So we have a lot in common. And they're like, you don't? Aren't you a recruiter? I'm like, we're not a recruiter. So we're considered a search firm. And so a recruiter, in the basic sense, is that they will try to sell you candidates because they're getting paid a commission on a finder's fee for finding that candidate, right? So, Benny, here are 5 resumes, 5 candidates, and Joanne is amazing. You need to hire her, or Sally, or Bob, or Bill, and they try to sell you. And immediately, what you're talking about is the resume, which is a piece of paper that's full of embellishments and lies. And
now AI wrote half of it.
Right? Yeah. And so. Right. And so now the client is not really trusting because they're like, well, hey, I know if I select this person, you're going to get a paycheck from me. And also the recruiter has every influence in trying to get that compensation to be as high as possible because they get a percentage of that compensation. Right. So the way we do things at Vision Spark, we flip that whole equation. And so in lieu of us trying to sell a resume to a client, it's a fixed fee. It's a flat amount. It doesn't matter what they get paid. And we are committed to you having that person that you want. And if we don't find that person to you, we refund the money that you pay us. And if they're fired, within any given time over the next year, we redo the search and no charge. So we have that guarantee, but our process is totally different in such a way that we create these compelling ads where we have candidates that say, oh my goodness, I came across your ad and this is the exact company I've been looking for my whole life. I want to work for this company. So we have hundreds of applicants that are wanting to work for Benny's company. And instead of us trying to sell the opportunity to the candidate, and now we're trying to sell the candidate to you, we get to be the buyer. We so we take them through 5 rounds of vetting. We narrow those 200 or 300 down to 2 or 3, and we say, Benny, here are the top 2 or 3 candidates. Here's what we like about them. Here are some interview questions. Here are some concerns. You decide which of these 3 you like. And if you don't like any of those 3, we'll send some more to you. And so we're not as concerned about what you selecting a person as we're concerned about you selecting the right person. And so, and we know we do that well because clients come back to us and they say, man, we had a phenomenal experience. I had this client that's over 11 years ago, hired us to help him find a COO. And that COO was with him 5 years. And he reached back out again and said, Alec, I need you to find another COO. And I found him another COO with him 5 years, like 4.5 years. And then he reached back out again and said, hey, Alec, I need another one. And so we've done 3 for this client. And we've helped him find a CFO and some other positions. But, those are great stories. But, yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. Thanks for being here today.
Yeah.
Is there anything I didn't ask you that I should have asked you?
What's for lunch?
Yeah,
I don't know.
We're going to lunch next. So, well, I appreciate it. We'll put all your information in the show notes. People got questions, they can reach out to you or Vision Spark. But yeah, I appreciate what you're doing out there helping entrepreneurs because I tell people about you all the time, because I'm thinking like you're just a great person to know anyway, and you're a Buckeyes fan.
Oh yeah.
Right there in the OHIO, right?
Yep.
So
all the way.
All right. Well, stay tuned for another episode of the Big Fish Cares podcast. We'll see you soon.